and she didn't know why I knew why I was stuck because I remembered my assault and I knew about my accident, but she couldn't, she had suppressed it. She didn't even remember her assault. And so what MDMA does is it really opens up your subconscious. So your conscious mind works off your subconscious mind. So until you understand your subconscious mind, you don't fully understand why you're reactive to things, why you make certain choices, why you have your fears. I always had to go into a restaurant and sit with my back facing the door.
Hey, beautiful. Welcome back to PCOS Unfiltered. I'm Lindsie, former ER nurse turned health coach and author of Healing Beyond the Diagnosis. Today's episode is raw, it's honest, and it's deeply powerful. If you've ever wondered what happens when trauma is suppressed for decades, how unprocessed experiences shape our nervous system, our relationships, even our physical health, or whether it's ever too late to heal, this conversation is for you. Today, I'm joined by Tracy Smaldin, survivor of a horrific childhood auto accident where she was the only one to live, burned over 70% of her body, and years later, a survivor of sexual assault that she kept secret for over 40 years. For decades, Tracy carried suppressed trauma in her nervous system. She pushed forward. She built a life. She worked in high energy environments. But internally, something never felt settled. In this episode, we talk about what suppressed trauma actually does to the body, survivors' guilt and nervous system shutdown, anxiety, hypervigilance, and living on edge, meditation as the doorway to healing, MDMA-assisted therapy and hypnosis as tools for accessing the subconscious, and the moment she realized she had to forgive herself. This isn't just a trauma story. It's a story about reclaiming identity, regulating the nervous system, and becoming your own hero. And if today's conversation resonates with you, especially around nervous system regulation and self-leadership, stay tuned at the end because I'll be sharing details about my live workshop on March 15th that ties directly into this work in a practical, grounded way. As a reminder, the content shared on PCOS Unfiltered is for informational and educational purposes only. The views and opinions expressed by the host and guests are not intended to serve as medical advice. Always consult with a qualified healthcare professional before making any changes to your diet, exercise, or treatment plan. The information shared is based on personal experience and expert interviews and is not a substitute for professional medical guidance. All right, let's go there. Here is my conversation with Tracy Smaldin. Was there anything with you, like physically, that also kind of you were noticing, and now knowing what you know could have been tied to suppressing that trauma?
Well, I always had terrible periods, awful, debilitating. My cycle was so out of whack. It was there was no rhyme or reason to it. It would last sometimes 14 days, heavy cycles. And I think a lot of that was trauma. I've had 5 myomectomies because I had terrible fibroids. And I was trying to get pregnant at one point, and that's how I found out about the fibroids, which I know this is different than what PCOS is, but it all has to do with our reproductive systems. And, and I think, I was able to find out about these fibroids. So, but like I said, I've had 5 myomectomies, and now fast forward where I am now, soon you hit 40, you're in perimenopause, whether you want to admit it or not, girl, you are. You hit wherever stage you are with in it or postmenopausal. And that is a huge trauma. Going through menopause is a huge trauma on itself. What us women go through, just going through that. But I was able to find an OBGYN here near where I worked, and his practice, they do Eastern and Western medicine.
Oh, nice.
And it's very hard to find that. And so I did a lot of research about it, and the estrogen, the progesterone, the testosterone that we start losing, our body, our muscle mass, things like that. I started doing a lot of research, and his practice is all on top of this. So they've got me on this regimen now. They call it the Garden of Eden. Or I'm sorry, not the Garden of Eden, the Fountain of Youth. They call it the Fountain of Youth. And it's true. Like it's like fantastic. I've got the perfect amount of these three, estrogen, progesterone, and a little tiny dose of testosterone. And it's helped me so much improve on my sleep and my stress. And I really feel like my cycles were so bad because I wasn't facing any of my trauma. Because your body will show up for you. It might not be the way you want it to, but it's going to show up for you if you don't handle things. And I think that's why I struggled for so many years because it was just everything was just so out of whack. And honestly, I don't know how I didn't end up sick or with an autoimmune disease or something suppressing all that for all these years. I really don't. Like, I don't know how I didn't end up like really sick. And I know a lot of people do.
Yeah.
So, and I'm all over like now where I am like going through menopause. I don't even know if I've gone fully through menopause yet because I'm on this fountain of youth regimen they call, and I haven't had a cycle in over 2 years, and I love it because they were so bad. I'm so happy that I don't have it. I don't want to ever have to experience that and the debilitating cramps and pain and not being able to get out of bed and I said to them, I'm like, so am I like post-menopause now? Like, would I be considered that? Because I don't feel like I'm not old enough for that yet, but everybody's different. And they go, well, I don't know. Stop taking your regimen C. And I'm like, hell no. I go, I don't ever want to get my period again if I don't have to. And there's a ton of people that argue with me about this when I talk to them because we cycle, our bodies need to cycle for a reason and everything. But for me and how horrible it was, and with my fibroids and everything, I don't ever, just between us girls, if I don't ever have to get my period again, I never will. And if I had known, I actually had an appointment before I got on this regimen. I actually had an appointment to get an ablation done because
Um,
my periods were so bad. And I'm so glad I didn't get that procedure done. Because, I mean, it's helped. I've actually had tons of friends that have had ablation done and it's helped them so much, but I'm glad I didn't have to do that.
mhm. Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned discovering the fibroids when you were trying to get pregnant because that's very common with
Yeah,
PCOS as well. That's a lot of
it
the times
is.
when it's discovered too. And women with PCOS tend to have the opposite in a way. They usually have less periods, less frequent periods. It's like eight or less a year to kind of be, to meet the criteria of PCOS. But when they do have them, yes, they can be bad,
Mhm.
as well. Um, but I everybody's different too, so it's kind of hard to say,
Yeah,
exactly.
and I think when we get older and we start going through like perimenopause and stuff, it could go either way. Like I know a lot of people whose periods have even gotten worse
Yeah.
going through menopause. Like they've gotten horrible. And so and there is no right or wrong to deal with it, but for me personally, this is what's worked for me. And I do, and they're really, what I love too about them is I've got my patch, and then and I'm so happy that I've got that because then it doesn't filter through my liver. And, I'm trying to keep my body healthy that way and be cautious of what's filtering through my organs and things like that. And I can talk to them about that. So there's so much information out there now on all of this. You don't actually need to find OBGYN to get the treatment you need. I just happen to find his practice is, near where I live, and they practice both of these. So it was really nice. And so that not having to deal with that has helped with my mood swings. a lot too with especially dealing with trauma and recovery and additional stress that, gets added on in your life. It just you can't think clearly if you're not at a good place mentally.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. I do want to talk a little bit more about the MDMA
Yeah.
therapy. So, like you said, talk therapy might work for some. The hypnosis might be good for
Mhm.
some. I've even had somebody on that's talked about tapping, that can
Yes.
also help with traumas too. So there's as we as a society have talked more about trauma and emotional health, I think all these things are coming about. What was kind of like maybe the deciding factor for you, or do you want to just talk more about MDMA, like, the criteria in general for people that might be wanting to explore something like that?
Yeah, for me, I'm kind of the type of person that with the MDMA, I guess I was intrigued. And if you can pique my interest in something, I'm gonna, like I said, I went down a huge rabbit hole with it. And I was very intrigued when I'll show you the book. It's right here. It changed my life. And if you haven't read it, it's fantastic. It's called The Tell by Amy Griffith. And I mean, this book, one of these days, I'm going to meet this woman and give her a hug because she completely changed my life. But when she was describing, the MDMA, actually, I believe her husband had heard about it and turned her on to it. I believe that's kind of how it happened. And she was very open because she knew she was stuck and she didn't know why I knew why I was stuck because I remembered my assault and I knew about my accident, but she had suppressed it. She didn't even remember her assault. And so what MDMA does is it really opens up your subconscious. So your conscious mind works off your subconscious mind. So until you understand your subconscious mind, you don't fully understand why you're reactive to things, why you make certain choices, why you have your fears. I always had to go into a restaurant and sit with my back facing the door. I never wanted anything behind me. Another, trauma trigger kind of thing. I'm still like, I was never very trustworthy of people. I had a lot of trust issues and things like that. And so I was very intrigued because I knew that I had a lot of work to do and I had already started that journey. So I had already been 3, 4 years into my meditation journey and doing a lot of internal work. So I wouldn't recommend it just right out of the gate for somebody. I think you do have to do
Mhm.
a little work beforehand to get yourself, I guess, mentally and emotionally ready for something like that. Because if I had just, well, this is, I'm unfiltered. If I had just gone balls to the wall and said, 5 years ago and said, I'm going to do MDMA and this, that, I would think I would have had a much different outcome. But because I had already done so much work, and I think the universe like works for us and God and magical ways, and I was ready, and that presented itself to me, and I just knew. And when I was reading about it, I was like, holy crap. And I had never heard about it before. And but everything that was described, I was like, I feel like I just knew in my heart it was gonna, this is what I needed. I'm the type, everything I do is hard and everything in my life, nothing is easy. Like if something's going to happen to me, it's going to be like worst case scenario. Like for instance, I had all four of my wisdom teeth taken out at once. Guess what happened? The all four were impacted. I got an infection. Everything that could have gone wrong would go wrong. And that's just typically nothing is easy. Like I always have to learn the hard way. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going big or going home. I'm just going to do it. And that was kind of the attitude I had with it. But I just knew. And then when I found this therapy center, she paired me up with Allie, my therapist. And she just knew who the right person for me was. And that's the biggest thing is you need to have full trust in your therapist who's guiding you through the journey, because otherwise it's not going to have the effects that you're going to want it. And she and I had that rapport, and I still talk to her. We don't have counseling sessions, but when we meet, we do breath work, we meditate together, we journal together. She helps me dive deep into like my inner child and things like that now. But it was so, and now I'm reading more about Vizethann, and I'm like, well, maybe I'll try that, because now that I was able to kind of see, 'cause it's almost like an out of body experience. You're on literally on the outside looking in at your core being and your core self, and it's such a beautiful experience, though, to be able to do that. I keep saying it was such a gift. Like, that's all I say is it was such a gift, because I was like, I can't believe like this. I've got so much clarity. It all makes sense now. And so it really wasn't a scary, I mean, I was nervous just because you don't know what you don't know, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if I were to do it again, and I've talked to Allie about doing it again, maybe, I don't know, in a couple months or something. Because now that like I said, I've seen what I see, I want to dig as deep as I can now. I want to just understand every morsel of who I am, and things like that, and be able to talk to other people about it as well. And so if you're listening to this and you're yearning to really have like that experience and going through the experience, I was completely alert. I knew exactly while I was in it what was going on. It's not like you're in this room and you're seeing pink elephants flying around. That's when people hear, and I had never done ecstasy, so I don't have anything to compare it to, but it's not that the actual street drug anyway. But it wasn't like that at all. But it's hard to explain. It was like an out of body experience, but you're aware of everything going on while it's happening. And I recorded the whole session, and she and I were talking through the whole session. And if I would, because your mind's going a mile a minute, well, when you're going through the session. So I would bring something up, and then I'd bring something else up, and she would write it down, and she'd be like, okay, let me go back to this, but I want you to, we'll go back to what you just said, but you need to back up a little bit and talk about what you originally said. So she would keep me on track and keep me through it. And it was so funny. Here's my journal. She was writing in my journal for me. I brought this too, and we recorded it. And I didn't look at this until a couple days later, but she was writing down notes from, like, these are all her notes from our session that she wrote in here for me. And she just wrote at the end of it with heart. She's like, "You are a living miracle." And we never talked about that during the session. I read that afterwards, and I was so touched, because I've never, in a non-conceited way, looked at myself as really being a miracle. But when you think about everything I survived and all the odds against me, because any single one of my injuries in my accident could have killed me. So I've never thought about that. And I'm like, you're right, I am. So now my whole focus is, and I want to start doing more speaking engagements and things like that. My focus is now, that's it's I'm my own hero.
Yeah.
And I never would have had the strength to be able to talk like this and say this if I hadn't have gone through that.
Yeah. You kind of bring up another good point there too. I mean, because it sounds like you did the research not only, for this treatment, but for the facility
Yep.
too. I think that's something people have to be aware of too. It has to be the right fit.
Hmm.
Have to make sure it's a reputable facility,
Yes.
do the research, because I can imagine there could be some bad things happening out there, taking advantage of people, in these situations.
There
Yeah.
is, and there's just here where I live, there's a place that's offering ketamine to people, and they're not providers. It makes me cringe when I think about that because I'm like, I know that you might have done ketamine and it worked for you, but you're not being responsible having this go through a center where they're qualified to be, you're not a trauma specialist, you're not a psychologist or psychiatrist or even a social worker or therapist or a nurse. You know what I mean? And it's scary. So you need to be very, very careful. Like, don't take your time. Don't just go to a quick place because they can get you in. Take
Yeah.
your time and really do your research and really research the therapist that you may have. And if you meet with somebody, you need to feel that deep connection with them because you're trusting them with your life. I mean, they
Right.
are going deep in your soul, and
Hmm.
you need to feel that complete comfort with that person. And if you don't, find somebody else because you need that is, I think, the key ingredient to all of this is that utter trust and comfort. And when I was with Allie, I was like anything could have happened. I would have felt safe with her.
Hmm. Yeah. Do they do like monitoring to like your heart rate and all of that stuff during?
So they do. So and she did warn me. It's heart rate in a way like going on a roller coaster. Your heart starts racing, but there could be if somebody has a heart condition. This is part,
Or
and this
reaction to it? Yeah.
yeah, this was all part of the intake form. This intake form was, I had to do, it was super extensive. And then I had to do another form where I had to explain exactly why I wanted to do this, why I felt I was ready, what was going on with my trauma, like what happened. So I had to basically write a whole book on exactly what happened to me, in addition to this very extensive health related, because they want to know, like, are you on any heart medications? Are you on anything like even antidepressants, anything like that? They need to know. It's very important. But I didn't have any issues with it at all. And there were times when I remember at one point I started sweating profusely and my whole body was like, like almost like not convulsions, but shaking. And I could tell my heart rate was going up like a roller coaster, right? It was a roller coaster ride. And she's like, this is your nervous system letting go of all the crap you've been holding in it for 40 years. Let it go. And as soon as she said that, and she said it in a much kinder, like not that. But when she said that to me, I'm like, oh, this makes sense. Now I'm like, okay, not why is my body shaking? Shake, get it out. I was like, get it all out, get it all out. Like I had permission to do that. And and she's been through the MDMA journey herself, and she's been through it with several of her patients. So, you don't want to go to somebody either where this is their first experience. You want to make sure you're with somebody that knows exactly what they're doing and they know how to handle it, because if somebody's not ready, or they, like I said, if I hadn't been ready, it could have gone a completely different direction.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think one of the biggest things is just there are like we can talk more about the hypnosis too, because I've had a couple sessions, more the rapid transformation therapy,
Hmm.
but similarly, like you said, it's kind of like almost like an out of body experience, and it's
Yeah.
beautiful. Like I remember during the session, just it's like I was crying, but I wasn't, hysterical, upset crying, but there were tears coming
It's a
down.
very emotional.
Yeah, but it was like kind of happy, but just me experiencing, whatever that was,
Yeah.
um, and being able to let go of it. And so, yeah, I don't know if you want to talk any more about the hypnosis
Well,
session.
I can. So my experience, because it's still so fresh, it was just last weekend that I did, not this past weekend, but the weekend before that I did it. And I went again with somebody. She's actually been on the podcast as well. I went to her, and I went in thinking with me, because with when I if you don't have experience meditating can be very frustrating. and it's called a practice for a reason. And and in my meditation journeys, I've gotten these downloads of information, and I've actually been guided by, they call it in meditation, your higher self. So, and then you work, like for me, a lot of it's working with your inner child, like how you're basically, you're teaching yourself how to love and care for yourself with what you needed as a child, but doing it now as an
Mhm.
adult. So whenever I meditate, I'm always like focused on my inner child and being guided. And so when I went into this, I was very specific when I went into this hypnosis session. I go, I want to get in touch with my guides and I want to see what else is out there for me. Because I was kind of thinking maybe they could show me the next step, like what I'm supposed to be doing in my life. Well, that's not how life works. You can't pick and choose. Like, but what happened, Lindsie, I did get in touch with my, like, I guess you'd call it my main guide. And it was a female, like a female energy source, because you could have, it could be female or male, or you might not even know, but it was definitely a female energy source that guided me through this journey where I saw things that I never, like, for instance, and it was a beautiful experience. The whole experience was beautiful. And it's very emotional. Like you mentioned, there were tears happening because it was such a emotional, beautiful thing. But one thing that she showed me is that after my one cousin who passed away, he was with me the entire time in the hospital room. I was standing out like in front of my hospital bed. I was completely bandaged, head to toe, of course. But I was standing in my hospital bed looking at myself, like again, out of body kind of experience, looking at myself in the hospital, all the machines, everything. And here he was. He was there the entire time that I was there with me. He would not cross over until he knew I was okay. He was there with my guide that was guide. They were both there with me the entire time. So she showed me that no matter, if I wish I had known that at the time, because it probably would have been more comforting, but knowing that he was with me through all that was so comforting. And then 2 weeks later, he probably crossed over when he knew I was out of my coma and out of the woods and everything. It was such, to be able to see that, it was so emotional, but I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my gosh, because you wonder about these things. And that was just one of the journeys. She took me through this. Like I saw some of my old dogs that had passed away. Like my one dog, he was like my soul dog. And I saw there were so many, there were, and I saw that I have this very strong connection with animals. And so all these random animals were showing up, like just commute. They weren't talking to me, but we were it was almost like telepathic. Like we could just communicate and understand. And there were all these different animals that were there, like just watching me go through the journey. And every new realm I would go, and there'd be this other beautiful animal, like elephants. Like there was this one elephant. It was such an amazing experience. And I just kept like saying to my guy, like, she would let me see bits and pieces of her face. Like it was just this white energy, but once in a while she would turn and I could see this beautiful, beautiful face once in a great while. And I kept saying, like, what can I call you? Because I'm like, when I meditate, I want to ask, because she's always there with me, but she wouldn't give me her name. I never got that. So I was kind of aggravated. I'm like, why can't you just tell me, give me a name to identify you with? But I never got that from her. But it was so beautiful. And I was like, I can't believe like everything that she allowed me to see. It was such a deep, emotional, it was beautiful. And that was almost a 3-hour session, that alone, right
Yeah.
there. but
Yeah.
it was incredible.
Yeah. And I think like one of the big takeaways here too is because people think of hypnosis and, back in the day when it was like a comedy skit almost, it
Yeah,
was
like
like,
you're running around like a chicken on stage. Yeah, it's not like
just good, yeah, make you bark like a dog and all these things. And it's like, no, that's not even sure. Like maybe you can do that, but
right.
that's not the case. It's hitting the subconscious, going deeper. I do incorporate I have a couple recordings from somebody that is certified and I incorporate those into my program. And it's because we need that, like you were saying, your subconscious is telling your conscious, self what to do. And so when we're trying to make changes to our health, that's where this can play a role and it can start healing some of those traumas, but then also
Hmm.
just help make those changes stick as
And
well.
and this journey has put me so in touch with my nervous system.
Mhm.
And so now if I even get like a twitch, I'm like, I hit the pause button and I'm like, what is this trying to tell? Like, what is this trying to tell me? Like, I really need to, and I never would have done that before, ever. And so now it's kind of like I try and regulate, keep myself regulated, my heart rate. Like I know how if my heart rate is elevated, I know how through breath work I can lower it down to, the normal readings. So I can feel it happening as I'm doing it through breath work. And breath work, if you don't want to meditate, if it's not for you, don't do it. But at the very least, the gift to yourself is work on your breath work.
Yeah. Um, you probably just answered this question because I was going to ask we were wrapping up. I was going to say, like what's one piece of advice or maybe even just one belief that our listeners, could shift in regards to trauma and what's going on with their bodies.
I think the biggest thing, especially for us women who, we have so much going, not that men don't, but we just with our reproductive system and our cycles and everything, I think try and find some tools to learn how to get in touch with your nervous system more because if you're blocking things, you're never going to heal. And I know, I'm sure you do too, people that have gotten off of a lot of medications because they've dealt with their trauma and they've dealt with they've learned like you need to educate yourself. Like, they say your body's a temple, but it is like we need to really learn about our bodies. Just because we walk around in this body every day, all day long, doesn't mean we have any clue what it's made of or what it's supposed to do. I walked around in this body not appreciating it for all these years, and now I'm like totally understand everything that's going on internally. And it truly does come from the inside out.
Yeah. And you only get one body. So one body, one mind to,
And one chance to in this life, to do this and dealing with anything physical you're going through or even mentally with trauma, it takes a lot of guts to just hit it head on and even to just start thinking about doing that. And I am proof that when, like, I can talk so freely about this stuff now, I don't get tense anymore. I'm totally chill. You could ask me any question and I'm fine. Um, but I am totally proof that if don't wait as long as I did, but if you get to the other side of it, it opens up so many doors and so many like amazing things compiling into your life, and it's so worth it.
yeah, yeah. I really, really appreciate you sharing your story. You
Yeah.
mentioned podcast. So, and how can people find the podcast and just connect with you if they're looking for you?
Yeah, so the podcast is Trauma Rock Stars and it's on all platforms. And same thing with socials, Trauma Rock Stars and on all socials. And if you want to get in touch with me, I will be actually answering. It's not a AI or somebody that works for me. I actually reply back to everybody that messages me, whether it's through socials or you can email at podcast@traumarockstars.com.
Awesome. Love it. Well, thank you again. Thank you so much for sharing, for being here. Yeah, I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much, Lindsay. This is great.
This conversation, Tracy's story, is a reminder of something I say often. Symptoms don't come out of nowhere, they're messengers. So, whether it's anxiety, hormonal chaos, debilitating cycles, sleep disruption, or just feeling constantly on edge, your nervous system keeps score. And what I loved most about Tracy's story wasn't just the trauma she survived, it was the moment she decided, I can handle this. I deserve clarity. I'm ready to meet myself fully. That shift alone changes everything. Healing doesn't have to look one specific way. For Tracy, it included meditation, MDMA-assisted therapy, hypnosis, journaling, hormone support, breath work. For someone else, it might be talk therapy, somatic work, tapping, nervous system regulation, coaching. But the common thread? You cannot bypass the nervous system and expect the body to feel safe. And that leads perfectly into what I'm teaching next. If today's episode made you realize how much your nervous system drives your choices, especially around food, stress, or self-sabotage, this workshop is for you. Inside From Mindful to Mindful, we're not just talking about mindful eating in theory. We're learning how to regulate your nervous system before making food decisions, identify what kind of hunger is actually driving you, maybe physical, emotional, or stress-based, and create simple rhythms that stabilize blood sugar and hormones. This is where mindset meets metabolism, because consistency isn't about discipline, it's about safety. And when your body feels safe, change sticks. You can register through the link in the show notes. We are going deep, but in a grounded, practical way you can actually apply. I hope to see you on March 15th at noon Eastern for our live workshop. Now, lastly, if you loved today's episode, share it with someone who needs to hear that it's not too late to heal. And if Tracy's story moved you, connect with her at Trauma Rockstars on all platforms. Links in the show notes, and let her know what resonated. All right, friend, I'm sending you so much love. Until next time, nourish your body, heal from the inside out, and thrive like the boss you are. You got this.